Hello and welcome to the business edition of PM Express. My name is Philip Nanfuri, and on this edition we're going to discuss one key thing, the insurance industry in Ghana. We're going to look at compulsory insurance. Are you aware of the types of insurance products in the country that are compulsory? Apart from your motor insurance, what you put in your car, are you aware of any other types of insurance that are compulsory? The NIC says they're going to present a bill, and by NIC I mean the National Insurance Commission is going to present a bill to Parliament to add to the list of already compulsory insurance products. We're going to find out what are these already existing insurance products that are compulsory and which more do they seek to add. In addition, we're going to look at the industry in general. And also, we saw something yesterday coming from the National Insurance Commission, that's the regulator of the insurance industry, that we should disregard reports that some insurance companies are in distress. What exactly does it mean for an insurance company to be in distress? We've become accustomed to the banking industry's troubles. Is there anything to worry about in the insurance industry? We'll find out on this edition. Before we kick off our conversation, I want us to look at the insurance industry in totality, very briefly, what it's made up of. Like I said, we have the National Insurance Commission. That's the regulator of the insurance industry. And this data is from the National Insurance Commission. We have 22 life insurance firms, 29 non-life or general insurance firms. So with the life insurance, that's where you go look for your products, where you have these agents coming around asking you to put money every month so that one day if you kick the bucket, you have something to fall back on, actually your family has something to fall back on. We have the general insurance firms where we have motor, fire, aviation and marine, etc. Then we have reinsurance firms. And my understanding is that if you pay a premium to an insurance company and they deem the risk of your, they call it sum insured, to be a bit high, they go further on to add some insurance, if I can put it like that, to your already insured product, good or service. Then we have 85 insurance brokers, reinsurance brokers, and loss adjusters. They are also agents in the insurance industry. So it's quite a big industry. But if you look at the data, and for example, the Bank of Ghana governor says 85% of assets in the financial industry belong to the banks, if I can put it like that. The insurance industry, we always hear, is struggling with growth or penetration, as they say, 2% of GDP. What exactly does that mean? We're going to find out all these, and especially what the compulsory insurance holds for us. Can it deepen this penetration we so seek? We're going to do all this on tonight's edition of PM Express, the business edition, with me, Philip Nanfuri. Now, to help me walk through these waters, I have two guests, one from the regulator, one a practitioner. My first guest, Stephen Odro. He's the managing director of SIC General Insurance. And Seth Esen, he's the head of supervision at the National Insurance Commission. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to start off with this. And Seth, I'll come to you first. The reports about some companies being in financial distress. And we heard that yesterday you guys came out to more or less debunk all these. Can you shed some light on this, please?
Okay, so we had information making the rounds on social media, especially WhatsApp, in which anonymous people who don't put their names to what they say, said that companies are in distress and people shouldn't do business with. I think that if people have issues with insurance companies, there are avenues by which they can address those issues. They could come to us if there are claims that people are not paying. We will make sure we investigate, and if they are correct, we force them to pay. And I know Mr. Drew here will testify to the number of times they get letters from us telling them that there are claims that they need to pay. So if people are peeved because of whatever reasons, there are avenues, legal avenues that they could seek redress. They could even use lawyers to help them seek redress. But people build companies. It takes them 20 years, 30 years to build companies. You don't destroy the reputation of businesses because you are peeved. So we took exceptions to that. So what we did was we set out all the companies that we say are in good standing. All the companies that we license, if you are not in good standing, we will take your license away. And you could see that we do that. So the companies that are licensed, that are allowed to do business, are in good standing. So that's what I would say.
So are there any companies that have had the licenses taken away?
Yes. So there was Adamas.
Can you give us a number to that?
There are about 3 of them that we've done in the past 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Odro, with the banking industry's problems, we saw that issues of liquidity, solvency keep on coming up, corporate governance, etc., as signs of banks that were in distress. With regards to insurance companies, how will we typify an insurance company in distress? That's if one was in distress, what will be the parameters we use to describe an insurance company in distress?
Thanks for your invitation. Since SIC has never been in distress, it's very difficult for me to differentiate who is in distress and who is not in distress. In my opinion, when a company is in distress, then it means they cannot satisfy their own obligations. Insurance is a grudge purchase. A grudge purchase means that if you don't have to, you wouldn't. You cannot own a car without buying insurance. So if the time comes for the insurance company to come to the rescue of the client and you are not able to do it, then it creates a problem for the entire industry, not for that particular insurance industry, but the particular insurance company, but the entire industry. So we all try as much as possible to help each other so that the reputation of the insurance industry doesn't go down at all.
Okay. By satisfying obligations, I would assume that if I were to make a claim on my insurance company, perhaps I had a problem with my car whatsoever, and I go and I make this claim, they wouldn't be able to satisfy that claim because perhaps maybe their funds may have been locked up somewhere. Is that one example of an insurance company in distress, if they can't satisfy your claims, if it's a genuine claim?
I think that's an extreme case. If the regulator is here, if you're unable to pay your claims, and one of the avenues to go to is the NIC, and it won't take them 24 hours to write to you that come to the office. So when you go there, you get an earful. But on a very serious note, it will be very difficult if I'm a client that you are unable to pay my genuine claim. The key word is genuine claim. I'm aware that sometimes some claims are delayed, not because the insurance company doesn't have the funds to pay, but there could be a certain element of suspicion out there that will require sending an investigator to ascertain the truthiness of that particular claim. If the insurance company does not explain it to the client, then the client will think that you don't even have the funds to pay. And that can create, information vacuum is always dangerous. So it's better to say, to tell the client, we have some few issues and we need to investigate. As soon as we are satisfied, the claims will be paid.
Okay. Seth, I got some data from the Ghana Statistical Service. And over the course of 2018, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, finance and insurance has recorded negative growths consistently. We haven't seen the numbers for quarter 4 yet. Wouldn't it be safe to assume that, yes, like you said, some companies were in distress over the past 3 to 4 years, you've taken some licenses. Wouldn't it suggest that, indeed, there's no smoke without fire? The numbers are saying there's negative growth broadly, and social media is saying that, you know what, some have issues. Just to add this, some would argue that the banking sector's challenges has affected some companies in the financial markets because you have the funds of these insurance companies sitting on the books or in the vaults of the banks. So if a bank gets illiquid, then obviously if an insurance company's operational account even is there, they can't draw on it for this thing. For their day-to-day running, and even take it to pay claims. Will you agree with that?
Not really. I think you stated that is the financial sector, which is made up of the banking and the insurance sector as well, and it has the security sectors as well. So the figures that you have from GSS is mainly for those sectors. And as you said, the banking sector is 85% of that sector. So whatever happens, the banking sector has a strong hold on all the financial sector. If you go on our website, we publish our quarterly results, and you would see that there has been consistent growth. Over the past 5 years, the premium growth is about 24% on average for the insurance sector. So the insurance sector is healthy, and we don't deny that there are issues. That you can't have a rosy story all throughout. But what we would like to say is that there are no companies that will not be able to meet their claims. Let me try and explain that a bit better. There's what we call our minimum capital requirement, and basically currently is 15 million. What that figure is the difference between the total assets of the company and the liabilities. And the liabilities are what you estimate that are the claims that would arise. And we expect that each insurance company in Ghana has a buffer of 15 million. That is what the minimum capital requirements are. So if a company is in operation and is selling business, then it means that it has that buffer as well. In addition to that, there's what we call our capital adequacy ratio. And that is a ratio that gives an estimate of the solvency of the company in addition to the liquidity. So we calculate a ratio in which that ratio should be 150%. And that ratio, the assets that are not very liquid, like property, are discounted a lot. So all our companies are in that range. So I would say that you may have quoted some figures, but that figures is too broad and is not very specific to the insurance industry. Let me also go a bit further and talk about some of the funds that we have in place. And all those funds are there in order to ensure that the insurance industry is a lot safer. So we have what we call the Client Rescue Fund. The Client Rescue Fund, I always take 0.1% of its premium every year. And we've been taking that for about 4 years now. And we put that money aside every year. And that fund is growing. And the purpose of that fund is such that if for any reason an insurance company goes bust, we would use that fund in order to meet policyholders' claims. So there's that backstop that exists. There are other funds there that as we go on, I'll be able to explain. There is the Motor Compensation Fund, for example. That fund exists such that if you are involved in a car accident and the person you were involved with runs away and you didn't get the details, or you were involved in a car accident and that person wasn't insured, there is a fund that I also take part of its premium every year and I put aside that will be able to meet those claims. It wouldn't be the same as you would have gotten if you was involved in an accident with someone who was insured, but there is a little bit of compensation. That's what we call a compensation. So there are funds in place that over time we are building up that will be able to ensure that the population is secure. So that is what I would say, that there are issues that we are dealing with. You mentioned the fact that the banking sector, because there are contagion and it is there, but it doesn't mean that we don't have backstops there in order to be able to help meet some of these challenges.
Okay, so the insurance sector is healthy, is strong, and you put in place measures to more or less forestall any potential losses. You mentioned recapitalization. Can you give us an update on when exactly, because we've been hearing that a new one is going to be introduced. Can you give us an update on when exactly that's going to be done and what the number is? Okay.
First of all, we know that there's one capital market within Ghana. And so if there's a capital increase, it was the same capital market that the banks were tapping into in order to raise funds. So we wanted to make sure that the banks do their work first, and then we too can start, so that there isn't competition between the banking and the insurance sector to raise money. So the banks have done their bit. We are currently in consultation with our mother ministry, which is the Ministry of Finance. We are also in consultations with the industry, who are our key stakeholders. So there's a number that we have discussed with them. But I think it will be a bit rude for me to say it until that number is agreed between all those stakeholders. But I would assure you that number would be between 30 to 60 million, give or take. So unless Mr. Odro and his cohorts come and tell us that we should increase it more than 60 million, or the Ministry of Finance tell us to increase it more than 60 million, it would be between 30 and 60 million.
Mr. Odro, I'm coming to you. Insurance sector, healthy, funds in place to forestall any potential losses. potential increase in minimum capital requirements from 15 million to between 30 to 60 million. Is that a good number for the sector as it is today?
Well, you see, when the regulator speaks, you can't challenge it. I want to live here in one piece. But yes, NIC is doing consultation with the entire industry. And at some point, I'm very sure the range that he has quoted, it will come from that range. Because we have smaller sizes, medium sizes, and larger sizes. And they are taking all of this into consideration so that I don't think the regulator wants any company to go down the drain. So I'm very hopeful that they will try to accommodate the concerns of each company.
Ms. Ojo, if the NIC came out tomorrow morning and said 60 million is the number for the new minimum capital requirement, will the institution meet this number?
Yes.
Flat out?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm an optimist,
I like the confidence. Okay.
And I know his numbers, and I can also confirm.
And then you can attest to that.
I can attest to that.
The nation's largest insurer, SIC. Okay. I want us to head into the meat of our conversation: compulsory insurance. And going through the Act this morning, Act 724, 2006, the National Insurance, the Insurance Act. So I saw the motor part, saw the commercial property. Seth, apart from these two, are there any other types of compulsory insurance in the Ghanaian market?
So currently, those are the only two compulsory insurance that exist. So the motor compulsory one, there are some cars that don't have to be insured. So if you get hit by a police car, there's no insurance to it. If you get hit by a government car, there's not necessarily, the law doesn't necessarily state that there has to be insurance. So those are all conversations that we need to have to see that if there's a need for the government and all those government agencies to start insuring their vehicles, that's one. Also, you talk of the commercial property. It only applies to private commercial property.
Okay.
So if you are in a government building and there's an accident, there's no compensation there. So currently, those are the two bits that are compulsory to be insured in Ghana.
Okay, and with the new bill you are seeking to present to Parliament sometime very soon, what other types are you seeking to add to this list?
Okay, so for now, these are some of them that we have in mind. The first of which is what we call the group life. So what the group life is that in most countries, the UK and the rest, if, for example, you are working for Joy FM or Multimedia as you do, and the unfortunate happens that you kick the bucket, you get at least 4 times your annual salary. And it exists in most countries. Nigeria introduced it about 3 years ago, and there's been a lot of benefit in that, in the sense that if you work with any company, in Nigeria, for example, if there are more than 4 people in any company, there has to be compulsory group life, such that if you die for any reason at all, that kicks in. The other type that we are also looking at making it compulsory is that there is what we call the PNDC Law 187, which is the Workmen's Compensation Act. And that law says that if you get injured or you die in the course of doing your work, the industry or the company that you work for will need to give you compensation. But it doesn't necessarily mandate that it should be insured. So what we are saying is that liability that arises out of PNDC Law 187, the workmen's compensation, should be made an insurable thing, so that the burden is taken away from the industry and in the same time gives the Ghanaian workers a bit more protection. The other bit is what we call professional indemnity insurance. So professional indemnity insurance is that if you go to Kolebu and you get operated on, and there's negligence or a mistake on the part of the nurses or the doctors, and you suffer any injury or you die for that matter, there should be an insurance that the doctor has taken, such that you can be able to claim on that. So we are looking at all the different professions, civil engineering or the engineering, the medical, the law, that all of them should have compulsory professional indemnity, such that if they mess up or if they make mistakes, as we are all human, the Ghanaian public doesn't suffer as a result of that. So those are some of them. And as we go on, I will mention another one, which is what we call landlords and tenants, for example. So, for example, there should be insurances that such that if a landlord building gets touched by a tenant, for example, there is protection. So these are all discussions that we are having with the stakeholders. The stakeholders in this case will be all the people who will be affected, the Ghanaian public, and this is part of the engagement. There will be engagement with the AGI, there will be engagement with all the professional bodies to let them understand that there is a need for that kind of professional indemnity that should exist.
Okay, so currently, private commercial property insurance, motor insurance are the two compulsory ones that exist under law as we speak today. What you're seeking to add are 1, group life, 2, workmen's compensation, 3, professional indemnity, and 4, landlords and tenants insurance. Okay, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, I'll speak to Mr. Odro and find out what he feels about this compulsory insurance. It might give him more premium, but it is going to be the panacea to ensure that there's penetration in the insurance market. This is PM Express Business Edition. My name is Philip Namfuri. My guest, Stephen Odro, MD, SIC General, and Seth Shen, Head of Supervision, National Insurance Commission. Thanks for staying with us. This is PM Express Business Edition. My name is Philip Namfuri. Now we're learning that the insurance sector is strong, it's safe, it's healthy. The National Insurance Commission, the regulator, is putting in every measure to ensure that there's a sound environment when it comes to insurance. They're going to add a couple of new types of insurance to the already compulsory insurance list. So in the coming months, coming years, we should see new types of insurance being made compulsory. And it's all for you and I, our well-being. It's not because they're looking for premiums, it's because they want us to be insured and to be safe. I'm going to pick Mr. Odro's thoughts on the new compulsory insurance and whether it has the potential to deepen penetration rates of insurance in Ghana. Mr. Odro, they've given us the list of the new ones they want to introduce. I'm sure you are privy to some of these discussions. Given the categories so far, I'm sure maybe set to allude to this, there will be more. Do you think this holds the key to deepening insurance penetration in the country?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no two ways about that. I picked on a few ones, that is a professional indemnity insurance. When I joined SIC, my first question was, do we have professional indemnity insurance? And the answer was no. That really surprised me. I spent my adult life in the US. My own spouse happens to be a nurse.
Okay.
No hospital will hire you without having professional indemnity insurance. No hospital. Some of the hospital will buy it for you, but you have to prove that you are competent enough to work there. So it's not a matter of expanding the insurance base. It's a matter of protecting the public. Because my own mother-in-law died on the operating table. Her pressure was going down and nobody, I won't mention the hospital, nobody was able to recognize that the pressure was going down. If this insurance had been in place, those nurses and doctors probably would not have been working at the hospital. Because when you have that type of insurance, then the onus will be on the hospitals to weed out all the quack health professionals. And it's very, very, very important. The other insurance that we don't have in this country that I will personally advocate that we should add would be all the government buildings. You know, I'll give one example. The old Foreign Affairs building. It's a white elephant. If that building had been insured, I'm sure by now it would have been renovated and put into good use. And as I'm talking to you, if you go there at the old, the Tema station, it's still standing there. And I will advocate that government buildings must be insured, especially fire insurance. You know what? If you enter any government buildings, you are exposed. If something happens, you are exposed. And there's nothing your family can do if you lose your life that way. And we troop to government buildings for services. And I would advocate very much that government buildings must be insured. When it comes to the police, I can understand that. But at the barest minimum, I think police vehicles must be insured minimum third party. My father was a police officer for about 30 years. And when, you put a laser on the police, they do the right thing. They won't, if they hit you, let's say a police car hits your car, and you have a third party, you are left on your own. So I think yes, it's going to cost the government a lot of money, but the police is there to protect the public. So as part of the protection, they should add at least the third party policies on the police vehicles. The one thing I've noticed here in Ghana is that people spend a lot of money to build their houses, and therefore they don't find the need to insure their homes. If my memory serves me right, less than 10% of private houses are insured. We've started educating some of the people. We've deployed some of our own staff, marketing staff, to go to some of the areas to convince them to buy. In fact, I personally went to one person, a very renowned person, and then we started talking about insurance for his houses.
Okay.
Initially, he resisted. Then we brought in some pertinent issues if something happens. That raised his antenna and said, I'm going to insure 5 of my houses. So bring in your underwriters to write the policies for me. So I think the education level must be increased. And all these things and the new ones coming in are very, very important to at least the penetration to expand. 2% is not enough. And also, you see people spend their monies to build houses. The fee that goes through the banks, then the bank can force the new homeowners to buy home insurance because they also must protect their interests in those properties. So if we get more people taking mortgages, you see more people being forced to buy
home insurance.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think you agree with the steps the NIC.
Absolutely, and I'm just trying to encourage them to add more. At least government buildings, at the barest minimum, must have fire insurance.
Mr. Ojo, how do we deal with the mindset issue? Because even with motor insurance, you realize that people are doing it not because they are concerned about their vehicle, but because they don't want to be stopped by the policeman on the way, asking you for your insurance. How do we deal with that mindset?
In my previous statement, I said insurance purchase is grudge purchase. If we say, if you like, buy insurance for your vehicles, I can assure you more than 90% will not buy. But we need to protect the public. You see, anytime you walk out of your house and a car passes, by you, you are at risk. And therefore, it's incumbent upon the government to make sure that vehicles are insured. So if something happens, then you will be able to get some form of compensation. Some people die. My brother died. The one that came after died on the spot through car accident. The car was not insured. Right at Amasamani. You see, and at that time he had 2 kids. Nothing came out of it. So I am very much particular about people who don't purchase insurance and then drive. I think the penalty for not having insurance should be steep. It should be. Because in that way, if you don't do the right thing, the cost of not having it will be more than buying.
Seth, with regards to the mindset issue, what does the regulator have to say about this? Because you'd realize that, and before we came on, I was talking to you informally, you realize that people are, even home insurance, I was talking to an insurance agent and he was trying to convince someone else to buy a home insurance policy. And he said that the person was adamant. Nobody wants to hear it. This mindset where people think that, okay, you know what, I'm paying all these premiums, it's set to the insurance company and then they enjoy it. What does the regulator have to say or do about it? It's a difficult issue, mindset, but how will you guys approach this?
I think that we approach it in 2 ways. One is that we need to, as it were, improve upon the image of insurance in Ghana. Insurance, the image had come from a not so good position, but it has improved significantly. Most of the complaints we have about the insurance industry comes from motor insurance. About 90% of all the complaints we come from motor insurance. It has reduced considerably, and part of it was because there was that increase of premiums from the 70 that was being charged to 400. I would say that 400 cedis for third party is one of the cheapest anywhere in the world. And so sometimes you also need to understand that you get for what you pay. So there's a need that the premiums that are coming in are commensurate with what happens. So for example, there was this accident on the Kumasi Road in which there was this big bus and a lot of people died. There was about 16 or so people that died. So you need to think that if someone was paying a premium of $100 or 400 cedis, how much would the insurance company need to be able to pay for that claim? So there's always a need for us to think about whether the premium that we are paying is right. And I think that when it was increased, we got to a level in which the insurance companies were getting sufficient money to pay. And it's incumbent upon the insurance industry, including ourselves, to make sure that we pay premiums on time. And also, we don't repudiate claims that are legitimate. And that's one of the things that the NIC has been doing a lot on, to try and make sure that we clean that. So that is the one side. The other bit is, as Mr. Odro said, people say that nobody buys insurance. Insurance is sold and not bought. So people need to understand, and you need to let them know what happens if this happens. So one of the big things that has been happening a lot is on the brand, let me say, type of insurance that's been doing well is on the education policies. It was because there was a lot of education that was done for people to understand that if they want their kids to education to be better, and they need to be able to plan for it. And education policies was such a good policy, and it really took off, and it has been doing quite well. And that was through a lot of the education that was done. Another bit is the funeral policies. That's also quite popular. We all know that funeral is a big thing in Ghana. And so the amount of education that went into it has made it an important part of those one of things. So there is education aspect of it, and also the insurance industry also cleaning its image. We have a group that we work together as an industry to do a lot of education. We do it not only in English, but also do it in other languages as well. So that also helps us to be able to reach the other bit. Let me try and explain a bit about the insurance penetration. It is currently 1.2%, which is not very good. And 1.2% based...
Sorry to cut you here. In terms of global standards,
Yes.
where does Ghana lie? This 1.2%.
Okay, so if you look in Africa, Nigeria's insurance penetration is 0.3%. That of Ivory Coast is about 1%. There are only 4 countries in Africa that has a higher one. The highest of it is South Africa, which is around 14%. Then you have Kenya, which is about 2.4%. And then you have Morocco, which is higher than us, but I don't know, I've forgotten about the number. So that is the amount of goods and services that are produced in Ghana. How much of that is insurance? And based on that figure, it's only 1.2%, which is insurance. And the government did the rebase of the economy, the rebase of the GDP. And so we expect that it will go down because the GDP increased by 30%. Yes, so unless we grow our premiums by more than 30%, the 1.2 would also go down. So there's also another measure of how important the insurance is, and that is what we call the insurance coverage. And the insurance coverage is the proportion of Ghanaians that have insurance, and that is about 30% now. So we have about 30% of Ghanaians, give or take, have insurance. So all those tells us that there's a lot of room for us to improve. There's a lot of room for us to be able to get people buying a lot more insurance. And it's incumbent upon us to be able to let people know about the benefits of insurance, and also the insurance industry being able to, as it were, keep on improving its image. Let me just give you a few statistics because I'm a stats person.
Okay.
On average, on every given working day, the insurance industry pays Ghanaians 700,000 cedis on motor, just motor. For the life insurance, we pay about 1.4 million a day to Ghanaians, working day to Ghanaians. So there's a lot of good things that the insurance industry does. But what I would always say is that bad news travels faster. So if, for example, Mr. Drew has had a bad experience with insurance, he will talk about it. But if you had had a good experience in insurance, you never talk about it. So it continues to compound. So it's incumbent upon also the insurance industry to be able to let people know about some of the good stories that occur, and so that we all keep working to improve the image of insurance.
Okay. Mr. Odro, he mentions an image problem in the industry. Do you think that insurance practitioners, particularly general, let's take the general because that's where you have the 29 insurance companies that are in good standing now. Do you think the image of insurance companies have improved when it comes to, for example, claims payment and all these things?
I can only talk about SIC on this one. Yes, we have improved, and NIC has commended us for improving our claims payments. Some of the image problems are self-inflicted, as far as I'm concerned. I gave a speech in Banjul, how to bring back trust, in the insurance industry. It all boils down to when the policyholder needs you. We should put the same zeal that we use to collect the premiums to help them to mitigate their problems. Granted, there are some shenanigans, policyholders, where they can concoct, some
fictitious claims.
Big time. Okay, and also people driving with expired driver license, all those kind of things coming to me. When that happens, obviously, the insurance company is not a charity company. We are not running charity. Okay, so whilst we are advocating that the insurance companies must be truthful and helpful, the client also must help us as well. I'll give you an example where a very good friend of mine, his car was involved in an accident. Then he had a call from an investigator and said, I'm the guy who is going to investigate your accident. How much money do you want? Without seeing the car. Oh, yes.
Wow.
You know, if he had played along and said there's a X amount of cities, then he would top it up before he's going to take off. So it is a problem. So when we suspect an illegality, it will obviously delay. And then they will run to NIC. My thing is delayed. And obviously, being a regulator, they will contact the insurance company. Mm-hmm. You know, this is, you know, we are inviting you, and this is the reason why. And most of the times, they will attach a copy of the complaint. And then we'll go and explain to them. You know, so it's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. But that notwithstanding, the insurance companies must and should always help the policyholders and also explain. In fact, this type of program to me helps because it educates the public, you know, about the do's and don'ts, and then the benefits of having insurance. So to put their minds at ease. We are tired of hearing insurance companies when you need them, they are nowhere to be found. Mm-hmm. But when they are about to collect their premiums, they'll call you about 10 times a day. We should try to disabuse the public about that kind of things.
Okay. This is a question that, out of curiosity, I just want to quickly ask. If you are driving and you are insured, comprehensive insurance, and maybe something happens, a commercial driver crosses you, you lose it, and you run into the railings and the traffic lights. What happens to the railings and traffic lights? Who takes care of it? Is your comprehensive insurance going to take care of that, of the fixing of that railing and street light, or how does it work? Seth?
Okay. So do you want to?
Well, the simple answer is it's not the insurance company that will fix it.
So should we start looking at something like that? Is it a possibility?
So those are some of the things that we call the public liability insurance. And so in other countries, it's compulsory that every building should have a public liability insurance. And those are some of the things that we need to introduce over time to be able to help us. I want to quickly take us back on some of the things that Ms. Odro talked about. The first of which is we have what we call a complaints bureau or a complaints unit at the Commission. And what it does is that if for any reason you are dissatisfied with your claim or the delays, you come to us and we investigate. And he would bear witness to it that it's not a very comfortable process that we go through. And some of them call us the hatchet men, because when we see those things, we take actions and we get it done. And so there are avenues by which people can complain. Some of the work that we also do is what we call claims auditing. We have what we call claims management guidelines, such that if you submit all the documents that are required, the insurance company needs to pay you for a non-life company within 5 working days. And so that are some of the things that we go to their books and we check. And if we find that you are not meeting it, the insurance and the company can be fined, or his license can be changed, and all those kind of things. So there are things that we do on the quiet to make sure that they are behaving as they should. And he mentioned the fact that we gave them a clean bill of health, because we went there last year and we saw a very significant improvement in the payment of claims. And that's something that we do across the whole industry to make sure that people are paying on time. So it is a process, and we are working as much as possible to ensure that they keep, but they should also take advantage of some of these avenues that we have for them to be able to bring to us any disputes that they have with the insurance industry.
Okay, as we draw down on our discussion, there are 1 or 2 key things I would like to quickly chip in, and I'll just ask one of you. I'll ask one, Seth, and I'll take one from Mr. Odro. Bank assurance, that's set to you. Given what we've seen in the banking industry and the reduction in the number of banks, what's going to happen to bank assurance? Because some saw it as revolutionary, especially in getting people to sign on to this thing. What's going to happen with bank assurance, given this current banking dispensation?
Okay. So bank assurance is where an insurance industry uses a bank as a distribution channel. So what we mean by distribution channel is how the insurance company gets the product from itself to the public. And so in most developed insurance markets, bank assurance is one of the key areas by which the insurance gets to the market. And I think Mr. Odro alluded to it, is that as our economy matures and interest rates go down, we would expect a lot more people to take credit. And when people are taking credit, the bank would want to make sure that just in case you take a loan from Barclays and unfortunately you use your job or you pass away, the loan will still be paid. And so, and as a lot of us stop trying to, sometimes I see buildings all over, and some buildings are not completed for 10 years, 15 years. It's because we don't have a very good mortgage market. But as we have a good mortgage market, it also helps the selling of insurance. So I think that bank assurance as a distribution channel will continue to grow in Ghana. Okay. There is a need for us to see how best we can make it a lot better, and that's something that the regulator is currently working on to see. Currently, the banks can only be used to sell to what we call personal lines. They can't be used to sell to corporate companies, and that's a question that we need to see if we should allow them to be able to do that, if it's going to help the growth of insurance in Ghana. But I think that bank assurance is going to be one of the key distribution channels for the growth of insurance in Ghana. There are other channels like online, like mobile as well, which will also help push the sale of insurance. But it is a good sector. Okay.
Mr. Odro, I am asking you this because you head arguably the nation's largest local insurance company. During the banking discussions, there were talks about foreign banks, local banks being wiped out, etc. There was some research from the University of Ghana Business School, the Ghana Business Development Review, 2nd edition, and it says there's an influx of foreign insurance companies from South Africa, some from Morocco, and other parts, and we know them, the Old Mutuals, etc. Do you think they pose a problem to the insurance industry, as in it will get to a time where we see our industry dominated by, or assets being held largely by foreign-owned or foreign insurance companies? Is that a problem?
It shouldn't be a problem, because the world has become a global village, whether we like it or not. And technology, has brought the whole, the world has become very small. And when a foreign company, I'll put it in quotes, is going to collaborate with an insurance company in Ghana, there's going to be capital infusion. Okay. It will enhance that company's bottom line. I'm not sure about the NIC's regulations as far as the participation of outside insurance companies forming partnership with local insurance companies. To me, it's a good thing. If for some reason SIC said, okay, the floodgates are open, we want to get into the West African market, the hope is that there will be no roadblocks, so long as we can afford. But there has to be some guidelines. It cannot be an open-ended situation for the industry. Otherwise, at some point, they will be taking instructions not from NIC, but from where the parent company is coming from. So I think the earlier, the better to put some regulations in place. I work for a big insurance company back in the United States, and they are so rich, if you open the floodgates in Ghana, they will consume all of us. So we have to find a way to at least have a baseline as to how their participation should be guided.
Okay. Yeah. So we've had a very filled discussion. We've learned a lot of things. Data from the insurance industry, and most importantly, the new compulsory insurance products we should see going forward. Group life, workmen's compensation, professional indemnity, landlords and tenants, in addition to what we have as compulsory already, which are the private, commercial property and motor insurance. In the coming days, we should see this actively being pushed by the National Insurance Commission, the regulator. At the same time, education is also key when it comes to the insurance sector. Anytime you make a claim on your insurance company whatsoever, take your time, let it go through due process. And if there are any complaints, like Seth said, there's a complaints bureau in the National Insurance Commission. Go there and make a complaint. There are other issues that got to do with foreign players in the insurance market. And we heard what Mr. Ojo just said. If the NIC can put in regulations to ensure that the local companies don't get sucked up, that's fine. We also heard set on bank assurance, and it's a growing part of the insurance sector. Even though the banking industry has experienced some problems, we should see bank assurance still going higher. So that's, in summary, what we've discussed on Business Edition of PM Express. My guest, again, Seth Esheng, Head of Supervision, National Insurance Commission, and Mr. Ojo, he's MD, Managing Director of SIC General. My name, Philip Nanfuri. Thank you for your company.